awesome.
Spend to the End, episode number 321. This episode is going to be a little bit different. We installed this new feature on the Sound Retirement Planning website. Over on the right-hand side, there's this little speak pipe dialog box, and you can push an orange button and you can ask us a question. And this question came in, and I thought it'd be a good one to do a show on. So episode 321, thank you for your question. I'm going to go ahead and play it for you so you guys hear it, and then we're going to talk about this.
Hi, Jason. I have a question for you. I've enjoyed your podcasts on financial independence and measurements of readiness and withdrawal strategies. We often hear about the 4% rule, but I rarely hear when to apply the 4% rule. At what age is it appropriate? I'm probably on the later side, getting ready to retire at age 70. Surely the 4% rule must be much more flexible for people retiring at 70. Maybe you can clarify that. Thanks.
Okay, so the reason I love this question, and I know many of you out there are asking similar type of question, is because he's grappling with this idea of, 4% probably makes sense in the context of the study that was originally done. And the original study was based on a 30-year retirement. Question is along the lines of, if I'm 70, I don't know if I'm going to make it to 100. So one of the hardest parts of this whole equation is understanding how much time you have. I am going to give you a perspective different than the one that I would normally give, because I would say most of the time we want to be prudent, we want to be responsible, we want to not run out of money in retirement. So we're going to look at it from that angle, not running out of money in retirement. But we're also going to look at this from the angle of, what if I do want to run out of money in retirement? What if I want to just spend to the end? If I just want to spend every dollar that I can? Somebody said, I came into this world naked, crying, and broke, and I'm going to leave it the same way. So we'll talk about the 4% rule and why it really is prudent and why it's based on the worst case. But then we'll also flip it around and we'll say, what if I just want to try to spend to the end? What if I want to, as I heard somebody say once, bounce my check to the undertaker, spend my last quarter as I'm taking my last breath? So let's start out by talking about longevity. 70, you may make it to age 100. And so that means that you could end up with a 30-year retirement, which in which case a 30-year estimate for how long you could spend may be a good estimate for you. But here's a couple of interesting data points that I found. The fastest growing segment of the total population is the oldest old, those 80 and over. I found an older article on NPR that said, by the year 2017, the world will, for the first time, have more people age 65 and older than children younger than age 5. And then he says that people 80 and older, they're called the oldest old, are already the world's fastest growing age group. MarketWatch had an article, and of course I'll put all these articles in the show notes if you're interested in digging a little bit deeper, but they said that when they were talking about longevity, they said a 65-year-old man today has a 3% chance of living to 100, a woman a 5.9% chance, and at least one member of a couple an 8.7% chance of living to age 100. But of course, the expectation is that as science, technology, medicine get better, that we would expect to see longevity increase over time. And so this article goes on to say that somebody who's 25 years old today has a 6.1%, 10.2%, or 15.7% chance for one person in the couple to make it to age 100. Now, of course, the tricky thing about life expectancy is the longer you live, the longer you're going to live. Just because I'm a little bit morbid, when I designed the retirement budget calculator, I give you the ability to put your birthday in. And of course, it will tell you what life expectancy is based on the Social Security mortality tables. So if you're 70 years old, the average life expectancy is age 84, or 14.3 years. Of course, we have to break that down by days just to really help motivate and inspire people. If you have lived to age 70, you've been alive 25,627 days. And if you live to life expectancy, you have approximately 5,209 days remaining. Now then, of course, you want to be careful about these numbers coming from the Social Security Administration because they're averages, right? Half of the people are going to die sooner and half of the people are going to live longer. But it gives you a starting point on what life expectancy could be. The other thing I would say is that we got to really be careful with Social Security because when they designed this program, you couldn't start your benefits until age 65. But for a man born in 1930, life expectancy was only age 58 and 62 for women. So I don't think they were expecting for Social Security to pay out for as many years as it has. It's important to remember that the 4% withdrawal rule was designed to understand what rate could you withdraw out of a portfolio under the worst case scenario. So Michael Kitces has written some follow-up and done some follow-up work in this area. And he has an article that I'll include in the show notes. And here's what he says. He says, and of course, if a 4.5% withdrawal rate is used in virtually any other environment, the client will simply have funds left over or can raise spending along the way. In point of fact, the safe withdrawal rate actually has a 96% probability of leaving more than 100% of the original starting principal. And he says, on the other hand, if the client actually lives through one of those historical worst-case scenarios, the withdrawal rate is just low enough to sustain withdrawals for that 30-year time period. So again, up to this point, the conversation has all been about how do we not run out of money in retirement. But what if we lived in opposite world? What if we said, hey, you know what? I'm going to try to spend everything I've got, every asset that I have. I'm going to use up all the equity in my house. I'm going to spend every dollar that I saved. The kids aren't getting anything. We're going to look at some numbers for that exercise as well. I've seen so many of these funny bumper stickers. I thought before we get into some of the serious stuff, I saw one that says, retired, now I work for my wife. I'm retired. I was tired yesterday. I'm tired again today. Live each day like it's your last. One day you'll be right. All right. So in this next exercise, what I wanted to do is I said, okay, what if you are 70 years old and we say that the average life expectancy is age 84 and you're going to hit it right on the money. You've been alive 25,627 days, and you have approximately 5,209 days remaining. We're going to assume that you've saved $1 million and that you will earn a constant 3% interest rate on your money every year. And then, of course, I'm applying the interest rate at the end of the term, so after the withdrawal has been made. The question is, that some people are trying to answer is, what's the maximum amount you could spend to life expectancy, given this scenario? So when I plug the numbers into the retirement budget calculator, assuming no Social Security or anything else, you just have $1 million, you're going to live from 70 to 84. What's the maximum you can spend? And then I assumed about a 10%, 10.5% effective tax rate. So if you spend $80,400 every year with no increase in spending for inflation, that's about $72,000 for living expenses and $8,400 for taxes. That gets us to a total of $80,400. The withdrawal percentage the first year is 8.5%. Your money would be exhausted at age 84, which is also life expectancy. Now, you could say, well, at 84, then if I'm still alive and I still have the house, and then I'm going to take a reverse mortgage and we're going to spend that asset too. Or maybe we're going to sell the house at that point and start this process all over again, figure out life expectancy, and just start spending as much as we can. For some people, this is an exercise in not leaving as much as possible to anybody. It's just having a good life. In fact, a lot of people that we serve have said, Jason, we've done a good job. We've saved, we've invested, we put our kids through school, we bought them cars, we helped them get into their first house. At this point, I just don't want to be a burden to anybody, but we want to have a good life. It's time for us to enjoy this money that we've saved. So whatever the case may be, we're just trying to figure out what's going to be the most prudent for you. Now, I don't feel good about being in a position where you're spending your last 25 cents as you take your last breath, because I don't think that's what we're called to do. But if that's what you want, we'll run the numbers however you want to get there.